We got cockroaches with Donald Trump, but I don't mean Donald Trump. I mean cockroaches in the economy. Those aren't my words. Those are the financial guru, Jamie Dimond, JP Morgan Chase. See, there's no data coming out of the government because Donald Trump not only has a shutdown that he created, but he's not letting any data out to go to the Federal Reserve or to the financial markets, and they are now in turmoil. He is responsible for $1 trillion worth of value being shed in cryptocurrency. Remember, this was supposed to be the golden era of cryptocurrency under Donald Trump. Well, look at it now. And in the stock market. And it all has to do with credit and fears about borrowing and credit. And big banks like JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimond saying during earnings call, I think we've got a cockroach, and we don't just have one cockroach in describing Donald Trump's economy. I couldn't put it better myself. You're on Legal AF Friday. Let's get to it about the cockroaches. We got two things here, cockroaches and canaries in the coal mine, and neither of them are a good image for Donald Trump. We got to hold Donald Trump and his administration accountable, not just for his destruction on the global stage of world peace, not just for his destruction of domestic policy, of civil liberties and civil rights, but how he is managing the U.S. economy. It's one of the requirements to be elected or to be reelected president. It's one of the requirements for a party to prevail at the midterms is that they are proper stewards of the economy. And what are we watching? What Jamie Dimond said out loud is that things like subprime auto lenders going out of business and taking with them $500 billion worth of value is a bad thing. He's even saying during his earnings call that big banks should, and his bank will, put aside reserves to hedge against future losses, meaning people aren't paying their credit. They're not paying their subprime, meaning kind of bad or low credit auto loans. They're not, I mean, who could blame them in this economy? They're not paying their mortgages and the rest, and banks are the ones on the hook. Here is a clip of how the financial markets are reacting to Jamie Dimond making a statement a day or so ago saying, we got a cockroach problem. Let's play it.
JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimond issued a warning on the earnings call Tuesday. He said, quote, I probably shouldn't say this. Okay, but of course Jamie said it, because that's Jamie. But when you see one cockroach, there are probably more. Dimond was referring to the bankruptcies recently of the auto dealer Tricolor Holdings and auto parts conglomerate First Brands Group.
And that's all the financial markets and the economic newspapers could talk about. Jamie Dimond calling it a cockroach. See, a cockroach in the Trump management of the economy. See, when we don't have proper independent data, reliable data coming out from the government, then there's a vacuum. The vacuum is going to be filled by analysts and leaders of banks and financial services companies like Jamie Dimond. Let me just give you where we are at the end of our week, putting on my Wall Street hat. A lot of people know I worked on Wall Street for about 4 years on the legal side, running a large portion of the legal department of a large financial services company. And I understand how the markets fit together. Cryptocurrency. Remember, it was all the rage under the Trump administration. The only one making money right now in cryptocurrency is Donald Trump and his family, because they want turmoil. They want volatility. They want volume of people buying and selling and panicking because they get the VIG. They get the brokerage commission. In the last week, cryptocurrency has lost over $600 billion in a week. Remember when Bitcoin was flying high at $126,000 a Bitcoin? Yeah. Well, now it's down to about $103,000 or $104,000, $103,550 to be exact. All cryptocurrency down 4%. It's even worse for people in business with Donald Trump. A company called Binance, which is in business with Donald Trump through World Liberty Finance. They lost 11% on their token value. They had to come out of pocket $500 million to try to stop the stampede. What is causing this? Banks are going out of business, especially ones that are making auto loans. And that has spooked the market. That's why we've lost over $1 trillion in a week between the stock market and cryptocurrency. And I put the blame at the feet of Donald Trump. And you know who else does? the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jay Powell. I guess Donald Trump's done making him a punching bag, realizing that that's only destabilizing the financial markets more. And now Jay Powell's back, in between the big rate setting meetings by the Federal Open Markets Committee that gets together that sets interest rates. Then Donald Trump's been bashing the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook and bashing Jay Powell. You know what they do? They go out and give speeches, like they go to Philadelphia and talk to an economic or a chamber of commerce and talk about the economy. And what Jay Powell has to say in the last 48 hours mirrors the cockroach theory of Jamie Dimond. And here's clips.
Which will be summarized in tomorrow's Beige Book. Based on the data we do have, it's fair to say that the outlook for employment and inflation does not appear to have changed much since our September meeting 4 weeks ago. Data available prior to the shutdown, however, show that growth in economic activity may be on a somewhat firmer trajectory than expected. While the unemployment rate remained low through August, payroll gains have slowed sharply, likely in part due to a decline in labor force growth due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation. In this less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, the downside risks to employment appear to have risen. While official employment data for September are delayed, available evidence suggests that both layoffs and hiring remain low, and that both households' perceptions of job availability and firms' perceptions of hiring difficulty continue their downward trajectories. Meanwhile, 12-month core PCE inflation was 2.9% in August, up slightly from earlier this year, as rising core goods inflation has outpaced continued disinflation in housing services. Available data and surveys continue to show that goods price increases primarily reflect tariffs rather than broader inflationary pressures. Consistent with these effects, near-term inflation expectations have generally increased this year, while most longer-term expectation measures remain aligned with our 2% goal. Rising downside risks to employment have shifted our assessment of the balance of risks. As a result, we judged it appropriate to take another step toward a more neutral policy stance at our September meeting. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate the tension. So that's certainly a risk. As I mentioned, there really isn't a risk-free path now since it appears that inflation is running above our target and appears to be continuing to increase quite gradually, but increase. It's still on the way up. So there's a risk there that would lend to greater persistence. But now the labor market has demonstrated pretty significant downside risks as payroll jobs have declined, and both the supply and demand for labor has declined quite sharply. So, those two states of affairs for our
the performance and the health of the American economy is an indictment of the Trump administration, among other things. When you take to the streets on the weekend and no King's Day and you're protesting, this is part of what you're protesting about, that Donald Trump inherited from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, a vibrant, growing engine of an economy that was helping people at the top, the bottom, and the middle. It was helping the middle class and the lower and the poor. It was helping them with their health care, helping them with their links to technology and being hooked into an AI future economy, getting them trained to do that, helping them with their schooling and their student loans and all of that so they could go to bed when they put their head on the pillow. They didn't have to worry about going bankrupt when they went to the supermarket or to pay for health care or to pay for something for their children or grandchildren or somebody in their life. And that was just 10 months ago. And now look at the economy. Between the tariffs, Donald Trump's warped policies that only benefit himself and those around him, not caring about the American people, him putting underground millions and millions of hardworking people that were in the fields, that were at the construction sites, that were doing the dirty jobs that frankly Americans didn't want to do, or there's not enough of Americans to do them. That has had a terrible impact on the economy. You just heard Jay Powell say it. So this is the referendum on Donald Trump. When you look at the stock market and more importantly, the overall financial markets and how they intersect, and you see who's responsible and at whose feet you lay the blame, it's an indictment of the Trump administration. It should motivate you and energize you for the No Kings marches this weekend. We're not going to have our First Amendment expression and thought and right to peaceably assemble crushed or chilled by Donald Trump in a show of force off the coast of California or whatever he's doing. This is the incredible shrinking presidency. The more he acts like a tough guy, the more we see him for what he is. The emperor has no clothes. The mask is dropped. He is incoherent. He is dangerous. He is rogue. And if you want to ask yourself, why is he passing that policy? Why is Trump signing that executive order? Why is he signing that presidential memorandum? It doesn't seem to make sense. There's three explanations, one of three or all three explanations. It either benefits himself, his family, or those around him financially, but nobody else. It's part of his retribution campaign. You're right. That's two. that's really the main two. It's either helping him financially or it's part of his vindictiveness campaign. That's about it. But again, he doesn't have at bottom the interests of the American people. So we're going to continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF. This is on Friday. Look, No Kings, protests, streets, flooding the streets, and signaling to Donald Trump like we did in the 60s that he needs to go. We need to run the bastards out on the rail is important. Protecting this community. Protecting First Amendment speech. Protecting independent journalism and commentary is so important now. Don't you want to be a part of that? Hit the free subscribe button here. There's no paywall. There's no outside investors. You want to really ensure that we're on the air for you and this community continues to build? Come over to Legal AF Substack. Join for $7 a month. We'll overwhelm you with the quality of work about law and politics. It'll blow your mind. It'll help us get to 1 million subscribers before the new year. That'll be about 15, 16 months after we were born. And I'm going to do it with you if it kills me. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.